everyone.
Hello, welcome to ICTBC.
This was our attempt at, looking really super professional, giving you a chance to join us. So thanks for joining us. It's fun to be back with Racine. It's been a couple months since we got to do this together.
I know.
And today we're going to be discussing Racine's fave, The Gunslinger by Stephen King. Racine, tell us a little bit about this story. Oh, shoot.
Actually, okay. This is one of those, this book is literary cilantro. Either you're going to love it or you're going to hate it.
Which I kind of love that term for.
Well, I mean, really, it's just one of those books where it's like, I think it's a great book club book or a book discussion book because nobody's going to be lukewarm on it.
So not necessarily true because I don't know how I feel about this book. I don't know that I would say that I'm a Stephen King fan. Sorry, Stephen. I know you're a great supporter of libraries. But I had my phase, but he's just not one that I normally pick up, right? I respect him. I think he does a great work. Just not really one of my go-tos. So as a result of that, I wonder if that's why.
Maybe.
I would say I'm a little lukewarm about it. Because I don't know if I like it. I don't know if I hate it. I definitely don't hate it. I don't love it. I'm somewhere in the middle, but it frustrated me to no end.
Wow.
That's how I felt.
That's interesting.
That's how I
okay.
felt.
The story is about Roland, and he's a gunslinger. And it's inspired by the ancient poem, Roland to the Dark Tower Came. Stephen King wanted to write like the American version of The Hobbit, I think. And so instead of having dwarves and elves and wizards, he has cowboys and men in black and deserts.
Not like the cool kind that fight aliens.
Right. These are not men in black.
Will Smith
from
style.
the FBI,
Okay, that was a bad joke. Sorry.
So anyways, I mean, it's one of those books where it's like, if you don't like Stephen King's horror, you might be really interested in this.
Yes, it's definitely not like his horror.
It is fantasy.
Yeah. But it's also Western. Like, it had a Western-y, he's going through the desert and he's a gunslinger. I think that...
Have you ever watched the show Firefly?
Yes.
Okay. So is Firefly a Western or a science fiction?
Well,
it's a hybrid.
Yeah,
it really is a hybrid of fantasy and Western.
Yeah.
And it's all in this post-apocalyptic, and it's funny because it doesn't talk about where it's at, but there are traces of Earth.
So that was something that I found very confusing because it seems to go, was it Earth in the future? But like Jake, for instance, right? Can we go ahead and talk about Jake? Jake.
First let's talk about the gunslinger, because I'm curious. Who was the first anti-hero that you encountered in literature? Really think about it.
You read them, and I never really for me, that's more like they're the protagonist, right? They're not necessarily hero or anti-hero. I think anti-heroes are more interesting just because they're constantly wavering between good and they have flaws, and so they definitely read more interesting than just your regular brand of hero, I think.
Yeah. Think about Scarlett O'Hara.
Yeah, I didn't ever read that book.
Okay.
Or see the movie.
All right.
Sorry.
All right.
But you know what you had said, like Oscar the Grouch. That's funny.
Oscar the Grouch is an anti-hero.
It's true. The Grinch Who Stole Christmas. Well, but he was kind of a villain at first. He just didn't like anybody.
So what is an anti-hero? Couldn't they be a villain and then change into a hero?
Fair. That's fair. Okay,
I'm just throwing this out there.
It's all stuff to
This
think
is
about.
what this.
There's no
this
right
is
or wrong
food for
answer.
thought. I'm curious if you guys have an opinion on anti-heroes. Chime in.
Also, I would be interested if this for you was like cilantro. Did you either hate it or did it taste like soap to you, or was it a wonderful herb that gives lots of taste and freshness to salsa?
Well, and I think a lot of people, Stephen King readers, fall into the two camps. They either love his horror or they love the other books.
Mm-hmm.
And this is an other book.
Okay.
What was it? Different Seasons. I put that on our ICTBC list.
Well, there's a fangirl alert. Somebody's a fangirl, but that's okay.
Well, you know what?
We each have our own things.
Yeah, and I'm definitely a Stephen King, and I hate to call it fangirl because it's like when he writes outside of the horror, and I think some of his horror was literature.
Yeah.
And so it's like, can there be fangirls for literature?
Duh. Sorry, but yes, absolutely.
Okay,
absolutely.
well, Different Seasons. It was 4 novellas.
Okay.
And this was like, when I read it, it was in 1987. And, okay, The Body was the first book, which they made into the movie Stand By Me. And then the second book in it was Rita Hayworth and the Shawshank Redemption. And I cried at the end of his novella. I mean, there aren't many books at that point that I'd really cried over. And so being that young, and it really made an impression on me. Yeah, it was.
So Stephen King's always going to be in your go-to, you're always going to try it out.
Well, yeah, and it depends on what it is.
I feel like that's good to have an author like that.
I don't like the horror as much because it's not my, and that's, yay horror fans, because, really, they love a good story, and what are readers but people who love a good story?
So I would say that this is pretty far outside of my normal wheelhouse. But I like experiencing that. That's why I think I can't say that I hated it, because it was something that gave me a pause and made me think about things that I didn't normally think about. But the story itself, and maybe that's why I would have to keep reading and finish the series, because I had a lot of questions. Like, where is Gilead in this whole timeline of Earth?
That's where Roland's from.
I was like, because then, at the end, can I say it again? With the whole universe vision, right? And I was like, well, maybe this is a different, planet and the universe, but no, because then there was the railway station, and then Jake obviously came from New York, and so that was just confusing to me. But I'm okay with not having that answer. It's okay. I get that, you want to be vague on purpose. I get it. But then the whole Jake storyline, why was there a need to even sacrifice? What was the whole point? Because I feel like, Roland, because we're just going to spoil the whole thing, right? There's no reason
sorry,
to...
spoiler alert, right from here on out.
Yeah, okay. So
come back and watch it later.
The book came out in 1982, right? So
the book came out in 1982. And then the next two books followed. So 1987.
Okay. Fangirl. I think we got a little of that.
Can you imagine?
So
when he got hit by a car, and it's like, is he ever going to write again? He'll never finish The Dark Tower. People were coming up to him.
So I did read the foreword a little bit, and he talks about that. How they were he would get these letters that said,
"A woman with cancer. Can you tell me how it ends?"
I don't expect you to hurry up and finish it.
Yeah.
Can you just tell me how it ends? So I thought that was interesting and kind of cute. But still, okay. So Jake, why? Why Jake? Why this specific boy? Because he was just minding his own business when the Man in Black came by, right?
Right.
Pushed him in front of a car.
Right.
And then...
but it may not have been the Man in Black that pushed him in front of a car.
But he's an active contrition and he had a... Who else is it supposed to be? Oh, see? Okay. So, but then I think he didn't even murder Jake, right? Spoiler. He just falls off the rail. So then he's still the sacrifice, which I'm glad he didn't kill the little boy because he loves the little boy. But
that's why you have to read the next book.
Some feelings while while I was reading that.
You had feelings?
I had some feelings.
See?
That's why it's
Isn't that marvelous?
I know. That's why I can't say that I hated the book, because I think I appreciate the fact that it frustrated me so much.
Well, and two, I mean, it's like this isn't this isn't horror, but at the same time, it's not soft and fuzzy.
No.
Roland's a bad guy.
But is
the
he?
gunslinger, is he?
But see, I think, and that's the same thing with
He
the
kills
Man in Black.
a whole village. How can that not be bad?
Because the Man in Black could set us a trap. But the Man in Black isn't evil either. He's not like a true, like, definite villain.
Well,
because
if he was...
he is just guiding him to his destiny. See, frustrations.
Well...
What did you guys think? Did you have you reread this book? If you read it a long time ago, do you have any comments? Nope, not yet.
I'm
That's
looking
all right.
to see if we had any, so...
That's all
okay.
right. What other questions do you have? Oh, let's talk about the high speech. Because you had asked about whether or not it distracts from the story or enhances it. Because they can, like, it's all translated into English, it didn't, like, he just says, and it was in the high speech, like the Trail 10 will take you out of the thing.
Remember the face of your father. I think it was certain phrases or wording, because he
ceremonial?
says...
The
Yes,
ceremonial
more a ceremonial, and well, to show class
Okay.
and caste, maybe in this new world. But the high speech, there's high and low speech in Roland's world, and I think that's why he's able to determine who's who and what's what.
Okay.
Because when you have a society that's so broken down, you need to know the people that are honorable or have learning, that kind of thing. So it's like back in the day, in the medieval times, people would speak French. And that was the courtly language.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Well, I think he's drawing on something like that. And he was talking about how the high speech was, he could tell from the sign, the train sign, that that high speech had its roots in that language. It was related language. So that kind of tells you, yeah, so it's still English. But I thought it was, interesting that they would have high speech.
Okay.
And, is this an affectation that he's bringing to the story? Why would you have high and low speech? And I guess it was to show caste and class, but I didn't know if it added anything to the story.
To me, I just accepted it and
went on. Yeah.
Because I had other things that gave me.
Well, and it's interesting because I hadn't read this for a long time. Mm-hmm. And, there's so many things to it that he was a 19-year-old guy.
Yeah.
Writing this in 1978.
Oh, Stephen was 19.
Stephen King was 19 years old. Well, remember your father's face. It's like so much about fathers and men, and it's a man's world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that was, interesting because now it was like, before I was just like, okay, this is a book, I'm reading it, kind of my time, but now in today's context, it was like, wow, that's really different.
Really?
And yeah, well, it's just my lens had changed.
Yeah. Okay.
That I was reading it through. Does that make sense?
We've talked about that before, how you have to read books at certain times in your life, and then they have different meaning based on the things that are going on.
Yeah.
The magic of books.
Right.
What? Dropping some knowledge. All right, so what else did we want to talk about with this book?
Well, did you like the language of the book? Because
I thought a little like the these and the thys I thought were a little bit superfluous.
Yeah.
Which maybe
there
that
were
was
a lot
the point.
of those.
Right. And the yar. Like,
yar.
So some of that kind of pulled me out of the story a little bit because I just couldn't. I was like, why would they do that? But for the most part, I thought it was a very easy read. It pulled me in, which is what a good book should do. It's just that I had so many feelings about the characters that I can't say that I liked it. That's why I can't say that I liked it. Because I don't know.
Okay.
But now I'm like, well, I probably better pick up the next book. You know? It's one of those. I'll probably be forced
Or
in
I can
to
be I can just tell you the rest of it. But 2, if you've read all the books and you want to learn more, there is a whole concordance of Dark Tower knowledge that you can check out from the library.
There's like a whole like fandom
of
the Dark Tower, right?
Well, and it's funny because really the people that have read Dark Tower are rabid. They are.
Yeah.
And can you blame us? It's so stinking cool. Okay, case in point. Sorry. I'm going to read to you just.
Okay.
The wind moaned, a witch with cancer in her belly. Every now and then a perverse downdraft would make the smoke whirl and puff toward him, and he breathed some of it in. It built dreams in the same way that a small irritant may build a pearl in an oyster.
I remember that line.
I mean, I liked a lot of the imagery. That still held up for me. That was the part, I think.
And Stephen King, I feel like, has always been good at the imagery, right?
Right.
From what I remember of reading his, because I haven't read any of his recent stuff. I went through this phase like in high school, but he was always really good at that.
Right.
And I think that's why he has such a strong readership.
Right. Because
like
he's
that.
building pictures in people's
adds
brains.
to the story. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious, and we went round and round about talking about forewords and whether or not we read them.
Yeah.
Because I hate forewords.
Do you?
I hate forewords. I hate forewords. Sorry, I know I should be positive in life, but I would rather never read a foreword. It's like, okay, this is the way I feel about forewords.
Do you read them? Do you go back and read them after you've read the book, though?
Sometimes I will.
Okay. Because sometimes they give a little backstory to like the author's mentality at the time and all those things.
Right. But okay, it's like going to hear somebody who's a really good songwriter.
Yeah.
And if they spend 5 minutes telling why they wrote this song,
Yeah.
and you haven't heard the song,
Yeah.
and you're waiting for the song, and then the song's on for 3 minutes, it's like, really?
So I feel
If you wrote a good song, you wouldn't need to introduce it that long.
So I'm okay with forwards. I'm okay with one forward. Okay.
Well, this one has like an introduction and a foreword.
So, and then I read The Princess Bride once, and it was a later edition, and so he wrote like a foreword for each stinking edition.
No!
And so I was like, okay, enough.
And then they compiled them all? Or?
Yeah, they put them all on I mean, it was about 100 pages later.
Mr. Morgenstern. So sorry.
It was Gold.
Oh, I thought it was Golding. Sorry.
Is that his name? Morgenstern was the fake author.
Yeah.
Spoiler. I'm
Okay.
sorry. But one foreword that I really appreciated was Confederacy of Dunces. Did you ever read that foreword?
Oh, no.
Because it's from the professor who got the book after O'Toole had committed suicide. And so it gives you the whole background
context
of how he got this wonderful story that, you know. And if you haven't read A Confederacy of Dunces, it's fantastic. It's my favorite book.
Isn't it like this thick?
It's a bit thick, but it reads fast. It's like Don Quixote, right? So Don Quixote was the longest book in the... No, it wasn't the longest book. I actually really like Don Quixote, too.
There you go.
Oh, English majors. Okay, let's see.
Hey,
we gotta
real
start wrapping it
quick.
up. Oh,
Next Tuesday, if you're in a book club,
yeah, good
you
plug.
need to come to Central because Sarah and I are going to be talking about book clubs. It's like speed dating some of the book sets that we have here. It's ways to spice up your book club if it's lost its luster.
Or if you haven't joined a book club and you're interested and you just need to find people with like minds that are interested, this would be a great place to meet up. So, great question. It is at 7 on Tuesday the 25th here at Central in the auditorium. So that's on the 3rd floor. Yeah, it's going to be, I think it'll be really helpful and also fun because we're fun. So... let's talk about next month's book. Now that I made it super awkward. Next month's book, we're going to be reading Lab Girl by Hope Jaren. Jaren?
I think it's Yaren.
Yaren?
I think she's Swedish, Scandinavian, so the J is usually like Y.
But it's a memoir about a geobiologist. And so we're reading this. Actually, we're very excited. We're going to have Sarah Jane Crespo from KMUW join us. And both Racine and I will be there too. It's okay. We're not going to leave you guys again for a little bit. And anyway, in anticipation of their Science Friday that's coming in September.
She is really cool. She started this thing on Instagram where it was like, instead of like selfies of your manicure, it was selfies of women with their hands at work.
Oh, cool.
Women in science that had their hands in work. And so it was her like running soil sample, you know, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a story of her life. It's a story of some of her work, some of her travels, some of her research and how she got funding for research, but it's also interspersed with why she loves what she does. Like seeds. When do they decide to take that big all or nothing gamble and sprout? It was just amazing. I love this book. This will be some great discussion.
The Washington Post called it brilliant, extraordinary, delightfully, wickedly funny, powerful, and disarming. So, if that doesn't make you want to pick it up, we actually have a book set of it.
We're going to have it at the checkout desk at the main library. So just come up and say you want the book for Lab Girl, and they will get you one to check out.
Or send us a message or comment on our post here, and we'll send one out to a different branch. We can do that too. So anyway, Racine has come up with some other book read-alikes that if you did like The Gunslinger, maybe you want to try some different series, maybe you want to stay in the vein of Stephen King. We'll also post a link to that, and it'll be on our website. Anything else?
The time just passed so quickly. Mm-hmm. I hope you guys had fun. This was a fun one. I missed you.
Even though the book frustrated me, I did really like it. And it's been really fun to discuss a book with Racine again. Not that Stephanie wasn't great.
Yeah, and we appreciated Carrie stepping in from Barnes & Noble. She was wonderful. So, anyways, thanks for joining us. We'll see you again next month.
Bye, everyone.